Oh, baby, we have some breaking news. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary here with another video, and today we are going to talk about the breaking news from Mike Garafolo. The New York Jets are hosting a free agent quarterback for a visit, and that free agent quarterback is Derek Carr. Here is what Mike Garafolo had to say in his report. The Jets are bringing in free agent quarterback Derek Carr for a visit this weekend, sources say. It'll be the second meeting with the team for Carr, who visited the Saints prior to his release by the Raiders. Carr is in the process of evaluating all options now that he's a free agent. Okay, so this is obviously pretty big news because well, my opinion, it's Rodgers and Carr are your top two options this offseason. Lamar Jackson's name is going to be brought up a lot. I don't think he is getting moved. If he is, that name then comes in. But I think there's a drop-off from those two guys to Jimmy G, Ryan Tannehill, Mike White, and the list goes on and on and on. So let's talk about some things. Let's talk through what this means for the New York Jets, how he's performed in his career. We'll do a little reminder and just go through all the talking points, the pros, the cons, and then you decide. You let me know in the comments what you feel on it. But this past year, he got benched the last two games of the year because they decided they were going to be moving on from Derek Carr, and they did not want to risk getting him injured in the final two games and hurt any sort of trade value if he did get hurt. They would have owed him that money that was due right after the Super Bowl. So instead, they sit him. But in 15 games, 3,522 yards, 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 234.8 yards per game, and an 86.3 rating. His numbers were down a little bit this year. And honestly, I mean, Josh McDaniels' offense, that did not have a very functioning offense. And Derek Carr was criticized because you had Devontae Adams come in, and Adams and Carr obviously are very friendly and have a good reputation together, I guess, or rapport is probably the better word to use there. But with weapons like Waller and Josh Jacobs, the offense wasn't that great. Now, all three of those guys did not spend a ton of time on the field, but really Carr, the last couple of years before McDaniels got there, I thought was pretty impressive, specifically the last 2 years before McDaniels got there. In the year prior, in 2021, leading the Raiders to the playoffs, he threw for 4,800 yards and a 68.4 completion percentage. And he led that team, which had a ton of red flags and a ton of issues, to the playoffs. So you had your coach leave in the middle of the season, and you had a very important wide receiver on your team leave because of a terrible off-field incident. And they still had an awful defense, and they were able to get into the playoffs, and Derek Carr played a very big role in that. 4 years in a row, from 2018 through 2021, Derek Carr threw for 4,000 yards, which is, solid. I obviously want that from your quarterback. And he will turn 32 at the end of March. So not a young quarterback, but not as old as someone like Rodgers. He's still theoretically in the prime of his career for a couple more years, and still should have a couple more good years left in the tank. Now, for some pros on Derek Carr and why he may have had some issues, because people will point out that he hasn't had, playoff success, which is true. They haven't had a ton of opportunities in the playoffs, but I think a lot of that is circumstantial, to be honest with you. Here's how his defense is ranked in his 9 years there: 27th, 26th, 30th, 24th, 32, 20th, 20th, 22, and 32. So they were pretty much a bottom 10 defense every single year except for two. And the best they ever got was 20th overall. So not very good there. But another positive is, even though that defense was so bad and cost them a ton of games, Carr also had a ton of fourth quarter comebacks, 28 fourth quarter comebacks in 9 seasons. I believe that's 13th all time, which is impressive. Does that always indicate great quarterback play? No, but there is an argument that Derek Carr is not clutch. He puts up all his numbers in garbage time, which I don't think that is true, because if you're leading that many fourth quarter comebacks, you're leading your team back in the game and getting your team back in the game, which is obviously an important thing to do. Still, many people will point out a lot of flaws with Derek Carr. For instance, he only played in one playoff game and lost, and that was in 2021. The Raiders also made the playoffs in 2016, but Carr did not start the playoff game as he was hurt. Matt McGloin had to start, and that's another thing. Like, that was really the only time where he's ever missed time in the NFL. He played 15 games this year, wasn't injured because of it. It was, a benching. 17, 16, 16, 16, 15 in 2017, 15 in 2016, 16 and 16. So he's missed 2 games due to injury in his entire career. 3 if you include the playoff game. 3. And we know, unfortunately, how bad the Jets' injury problem is. So Carr's health and durability has to play a factor here in making the quarterback decision. But back to some of the negatives going against him. That is one of them, that he only played in that one playoff game. They didn't win the game. The Bengals won on a last-second field goal. That was a couple McPherson, right? Wasn't that Evan McPherson was hot kicking those field goals, the game-winning field goals there. But not much playoff experience. People also point to the cold weather. Guy can't play in the cold weather. Under 37 degrees, 0-7, 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Obviously, that is not great numbers. I will say that one, if you spent time in the Northeast this winter in New York or New Jersey, has it really been under 37 degrees that much? I don't know if that's going to really play that much of a factor. It's not like, I don't know, in 30 years ago playing in MetLife or the Meadowlands or whatever you want to call it. Not really the same thing. And number 2, he was in warm weather climates throughout all those times. So he's used to Vegas weather. He was used to California weather. If your body is used to the weather that you are, your climate is in, I'm not a science guy, but I would think your body eventually would get used to it. It's not like, you're going from playing in 100-degree weather to 20-degree weather every single time. It's not like even up in Buffalo. There's a huge difference between playing in Buffalo and further down south where the Jets are. That's a drastic difference. The weather, they didn't really play in that many bad weather games this year, especially in the home games. The only one that was really bad weather at home was the Bears game, and that was rain. Was it really that cold that day? Not really. And the final critique is that Derek Carr is not elite. And I would agree with that, but I think he's a very good quarterback. I would rank him somewhere, probably the 12th to 14th best quarterback in the league, somewhere in the top half, though. And I do think this Jets team can win a lot of games with a very good quarterback. Obviously, an elite level quarterback helps. Having someone like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow is going to make things a lot easier on you. That is for sure. But we're really not terribly far removed from guys going on these deep runs. Jimmy G made the Super Bowl in 2019. That's not that long ago, and they were a couple plays away from winning that game. Now, I know people are going to say, well, yeah, just sign Jimmy G, but injuries have really taken over his career. He's gotten hurt again, so that's not a route that I would necessarily be looking to go. But did the Philadelphia Eagles not win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback not that long, like 5 years ago? I don't want to go back to like Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson. Like, I get those comments all the time, and I think that's ridiculous because early 2000s football and 2020s football is very, very different. But 2017 and 2019 season is really not that long ago, and you can do it. And again, if your defense is that good and you have your weapons around you, you can win with good quarterback play. I'm not saying like bottom 10 quarterback play where like even average. I think Derek Carr is slightly above average, and I think you can win with how good the rest of the roster is. And obviously, like, that's going to become the debate is, should it be Rodgers or should it be Carr? And I understand, why people want Aaron Rodgers more, and I probably do as well. But if it is Derek Carr, I think there are a lot of reasons to be excited about that, and I'd be relatively happy with it. I think I would. I would be hard for me to complain about it. I think he would be a good fit for this New York Jets team, and I think they'd win a lot of games. So let me know your thoughts on Derek Carr now that he is officially meeting with the New York Jets. Sound off below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.